as an economist, what are your thoughts on the recent tariffs? How will it affect home prices?
The market is very fragile. It's kind of on a high wire. I think it's really a delicate balance. If we go into recession, maybe prices could start to fall. But on the other hand of that, Todd, is the government is so much more involved in the market than they used to be. The mortgage market is basically controlled by the government. They won't let it crash. They'll come in with this program or that program. Or
is that good or bad?
20 years ago when we had that big crash here, Canada and Australia, they didn't have those big crashes. And what happened is prices then went up. So now the prices are crazy high in Australia and Canada because they never corrected. So the fact is, if we don't correct, if we don't get in a correction, that could be bad years from now.
You think we'll be like Japan and have 100-year mortgages one day?
God, I shall hope not. I want to get back to 20-year mortgages.
That's right. John Wake, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, Todd. Great to be here.
You're a housing analyst, and in your prior life, you were a former international ag trade economist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's right. I was a geek.
How are you spending your time nowadays?
Well, I'm thinking, oh man, I used to be an expert on tariffs, and now tariffs are a thing. What the heck? I'm cool again. I was one time. This is in like 1988. USDA, this thing went on, and we were going to retaliate against $100 million of imports from the EC because the European community at that time blocked beef imports from the U.S. So we went through all the things so we were going to retaliate, and it was approved by the GATT anyway. So I had been a data guy in the data part of USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, and then I had just moved into a different part, which was related to the European community. And they told me, we need to retaliate against $100 million of agricultural imports from the European community. Can you give us a list? So I was the one, this 33-year-old, whatever it was, kid. I was the one who chose everything that was on that retaliation list of $100 million in 1988. Insane. Later on, they got smart and they had to, it was, in that case, you want to direct the retaliatory tariffs against different products that have more political influence. So they did that, but that was like 10 years later before they adjusted that retaliation list. But I used to be a total geek on U.S. exports of agricultural product numbers and imports.
How long did you work for the USDA? I want to talk about the tariffs too. Now that you brought that up, but we'll kind of get into that, and I want to get your opinion on a couple things as it pertains to housing. But how long were you with the USDA?
7 years. 7 years. I did Washington D.C. and then I was at the American Embassy in Paris for 2.5 years.
Wow. Why'd you leave?
Several things were going on, but there was like 4 different things. One, my first boss in Paris was a total jerk. He was famous for being a bad boss. And turns out my wife hated it. We went there with, hey, just a tip, Todd. If you ever move to Paris, don't move with a 1-year-old and a pregnant wife. It's probably not the ideal time to move there.
You took her where there was no friend group, no family, no anything, right? And then you were probably working a ton as well, right? So
right. But
yeah.
The advantage was they paid for housing, so she didn't have to work, so she could stay home the whole time.
Thinking about how she hated it. So,
yeah, it's like just to get food, you don't drive. It's like get the stroller with 2 little kids. You had to like fold it up, get the kids in your arm, and go to this tiny elevator to go down to It was just a pain to bring food into the house. And she wasn't adventurous as I was at that time anyway.
DOGE has gone after the USDA a little bit. How do you think they're doing right now? I mean, I think DOGE, it was reported that they terminated leases, I believe, on more than 100 USDA offices, and they've also canceled a lot of the funding for certain programs. How do you think that the USDA is doing? And after being an economist for them, do you believe that they needed to be more efficient? I mean, you said you didn't like the boss you were working for, but did you notice back then, was there waste, fraud, and abuse that as an economist that you were looking at saying this is kind of ridiculous?
Not back at that time. I'm sure glad I don't work at the Foreign Agricultural Service right now. Oh my God, they must be going through chaos at this point, trying to figure that out. Another one I heard is they produced some. A friend of mine did a whole career in fire, wildland fire, and it's like they've cut that. It's like, oh my gosh, we just had huge fires in LA. Why would you be cutting fire resources? That's that's a big problem. I don't know what those poor people are doing because you're thinking, oh my God, I got a family, I got to keep a job. But I don't remember them being, let's see, a lot of the times the problems were caused by the politicians above changing directions. So that's a lot of inefficiency when you get a new boss that decide to, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do this. And so that adds a ton of inefficiency, a wasted time on the projects you abandoned that is totally wasted now.
That's a very interesting point, actually. So what you're saying is a lot of these government agencies, they change with the administration. So you get, maybe every 4 years or every 8 years or whatever, they abandon things that they're, have been doing. So I guess that would kind of damage morale too. If you're working on something in specific and you have a lot of time in it and that no longer means anything, I'm sure that's frustrating.
Oh my gosh, it's just you invested so much time, all this work, and then suddenly it's not valued. All that work you did isn't valued anymore. So that's tough. So I guess that's going to happen in the private sector too, but still less so. And in the private sector, they probably don't change. Well, man, it depends.
Yeah. Let's talk about the trade tariffs. As an economist and dealing with international trade experience, I mean, you just said that you made a list back in the day of, to try and pick what products or whatever to go at trade war, with other countries. What are your thoughts on the recent tariffs? How do you believe that it will play out? And more specifically, how will it affect home prices?
Oh, well, okay. It is so weird that they came in and said, "Oh, we have this emergency powers to change all these tariffs," and they did this broad-based tariffs. I think it's going to I think it's just going to add a tremendous amount of chaos to the market. And other people were saying, "Okay, I'm an importer, or and suddenly I have to get a different company, or like let's say you were an exporter, and now they're retaliating against you. Then they're going to find somebody else. They're going to start importing beef from Australia instead of the United States, or they'll get their vegetables or whatever from South America instead. And once those relationships are established for a while, they're not going to go back. Even if you got rid of the tariffs 2 years from now, they're not going to. They have a reliable supplier in wherever for Australia. They're not going to switch. So if it goes on for very long, it's going to change the whole setup of the industries. And the U.S. is a huge, huge exporter, and particularly with services as well. And for agriculture is always huge. And we export a ton of stuff. We import some like fruits and vegetables from Mexico, but for agriculture-wise, we export a ton. So I think it's going to has a really high potential to, well, maybe it's the trigger to put us into a recession. We've been talking about that for ages. And if we do go into a recession, that I think is the biggest downside risk to home prices is if we go into a recession. Because right now it seems like prices are so high, but prices haven't gone down that much. They went down a little while for a couple of years ago, and then been flat for like 2-3 years. And I think it's kind of on a high wire. It's really a delicate balance. If we go into a recession, maybe prices could start to fall. But on the other hand of that, Todd, is the government is so much more involved in the market than they used to be with eviction moratoriums and that kind of stuff. And the government on FHA loans, well, you don't even have to ask for them to redo the loan, and they'll redo the loan for you. So the government's a lot more involved. But we mentioned Australia and other places. In 20 years ago, when we had that big crash here, in Canada and Australia, they didn't have those big crashes. And what happened is prices then went up. So now the prices are crazy high in Australia and Canada because they never corrected. So the fact is, if we don't get in a correction, that could be bad, from years from now. My best case scenario, my hopeful scenario is that prices are flat for 5-10 years, and so the real inflation adjusted price slowly is declining. So it's not like, oh my God, the Great Recession, that was horrible. Well, speaking of a Great Recession, prices were really weak for a couple years. They were flat, going down a little bit. But once we hit the Great Recession, that's when prices started to tank. It was a combination of a weak real estate market and then the Great Recession. That's when prices just tanked. But I can't imagine we would be that bad again. My kind of model is it would be more like the the S&L recession, where they went down, 10, 15%. Well, Maryland really got tanked, I think, back in that recession. But most overall prices went down 10, 15%, and then they were flat for like 5 years. So that would be, to me, the best case scenario, because there is a lot of downside risk on home prices. Oh my gosh.
What do you think about in ramp up time? Like, how long does it take for, and best case scenarios, to develop more manufacturing
Oh yeah,
onshore?
that's got to be. That's the big question. How long does it take to set up something new? If you already had companies already making this stuff, then it's easy for them maybe with the same facility. Now they're at a shift or something. But if it's something we don't produce at all or very little, then you got to build a factory, or that's going to take a ton longer. So that's the big disruption issue. And it would be, the reason we're importing this stuff was it was cheaper than building it locally anyway. So it's going to increase costs because that's why we're importing this stuff. It was cheaper than doing it locally.
What do you think it'll do? Let's talk about because we know a lot of the finished products we get from China. Talk about injection molded materials, things like that. I mean, a lot of our plastics, whether you're talking about device boxes for electrical outlets and switches, or it could be that everything from that to electrical wire to I know we do a lot of the insulation manufacturing here in the States. But as far as lighting fixtures, a lot of the things that you see from Home Depot, the box stores, Lowe's, things like that, a lot of that material is imported. And by the way, a lot of it's not a very good quality. I mean, I was just talking on a podcast that, I have installed exterior lighting sconces on jobs not that long ago, recently. And, in 2 years' time, it seems like the varnish has got, that shine's gone off of them, and it looks like something that's been outside for 15 years. I mean, little things like that. But what do you think that will do to, there's a lot of material or a lot of housing inventory that we look at. I mean, you're an agent as well, that you look at today that's on the market, and it's limited inventory, right? Sellers they're locked in place. A lot of them, they can't sell. They have these low interest rates. They can't move anywhere. Now we're seeing the inventory that is coming on the market. A lot of it is has a lot of functional obsolescence. Kitchens that need remodeling, bathrooms that need remodeling, very expensive rooms to remodel. And the sellers are not wanting to spend money, but yet they want those high prices. What do you think, the fact that we may be looking at product costs going even higher than what they are right now, whether it's tariffs, whether it's just inflation, lack of sales for these businesses needing to raise prices so that they can keep their doors open? What do you think that will do to the existing home market as far as the sellers being able to get those high prices? How do you think that will affect resale?
Yeah, the resale market. On the one hand, just listening to you talk right now, a lot of the stuff we're importing is the lower end stuff. So you maybe got to switch to the higher end product, which is made in the U.S., the more expensive product, but it's higher quality. So maybe that works out. But for a seller, the sellers you can't. I used to tell buyers, you can't make a crazy seller uncrazy. That's if they want too much money, there's no way you can talk them into bringing down the price to fair market value. So I think that's going to still be the issue. But if we still get one thing that could happen, let's say this does trigger a recession. on the one hand, there's less employment, but on the other hand, they can start lowering interest rates. Typically, after recession, around the time a recession starts, they start lowering interest rates and that could help bolster demand that way too. It's just unpredictable on how it goes, but it's generally right now it seems like there's more downside risk. Oh yeah, definitely a ton more downside risk. The kind of the upside potential is that prices don't fall, that they're just continue to be flat for another 2 years. They've been in Phoenix anyway, they've been flat for like 2-3 years overall. So yeah, there's a lot of downside risk for sellers, and it's also interesting that if the stock market crashes at the same time or goes down, continues falling, and then home prices, that the people that really hurts. I mean, if you're young, who cares? Prices go up and down, you're fine. But it's those people who suddenly they have to retire, not retire, they have to go into assisted living or something. They have some medical thing there. They're older, they've retired, and suddenly the value of their stocks are down and the value of their house is down. It's a it's a bad situation for those people who are what do you call it? Yeah, everyone talks about first-time buyers. Well, what about last-time sellers? If they have to sell on a down market because of whatever reason, they're the people get hit the hardest in the down market.
Talking about, I want to go back and address what you had mentioned about buying more expensive products. They're selling these lower quality products at high prices.
Oh,
I mean, they're already selling them at high prices. I mean, I can remember, in building houses and renovating houses, being able to get a simple light fixture, just some type of a wall light or a ceiling light, and, being able to spend $10, $14 on a decent fixture. Now they're $100. I mean,
my God.
It's things are expensive. It's not, people can't John, people can't afford, you can't just tell people just buy a top line product. They can't afford it. I mean, now. And I don't know what you see, when you're looking at houses, but when you're talking about boomers, maybe you have a scenario where you had, and by the way, a lot of boomers didn't move every 7 to 9 years like the, Gen Xers, my generation, or like we're seeing a lot of the millennials, and they're moving, buying a house and wanting to sell it in 3 years, and, not wanting to be in the area, not considering that. I mean, you go back to a lot of boomers and silent generation, they stayed in their houses for 30, 40, 50 years, a lot of them, right? So it wasn't a starter home, it was home.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these folks that are now selling to move in with family or go into a retirement or assisted living facility, they haven't touched their house in 30 years. I mean, they lived in it.
Typically,
right?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, they're not renovating they don't have the money. Their equity was in the house, but they're not going out and cashing in that equity. A lot of them are on fixed budgets. They're paying everything they can do to pay property taxes and insurance. They may not have a mortgage, but they have a lot of costs and are typically thinking they have a fixed amount of money. I'm not talking about the top tier, wealthy. I'm talking about middle class America. As they're aging in place, they're saying, do I have enough money to survive or to live the rest of my life on a fixed budget? So they're not going out and renovating these homes. A lot of this inventory is hitting. The question is, what happens to the buyer, the Gen Xer, or the millennial, or the Gen Zs that buy these houses that need massive upgrades? And we're looking at the expense. The question is, over the last 4 years, they've been buying it anyway and dealing with it, and now they're regretful and they have a lot of remorse because they're like, man, now I have to think about spending $50,000 to renovate this kitchen, which I can't do. But now they want to sell it, and the buyers are like, hell no, I'm not buying that. You may have bought it 4 years ago and paid top dollar and with an outdated kitchen or bathroom or things broken, but now we want them fixed. How do you think that is going to impact? Because we're going to get into a study that I want to talk about as far as, why and try and drill down. You and I have done this in the past. We talked about, what is the driver of these home prices. But don't you think buyers right now, based on the economy, are going to say no to these homes that need, $100,000 in updates to sell it for top dollar?
Yeah, totally. If you look at Phoenix, we have more homes for sale now than we have since 2014. So you don't have to take that house. If during the peak market, there was hardly anything available. And so you would take something that had all these faults, whether it be the location or needs updates, because there was nothing else available. But now buyers have a lot of choices. So they don't have to take that house. They can get one that's already been updated and take it into account. That was the same thing that happened in 2008. People would, I remember specifically houses that would back to a busy street. Typically, that would take off value, but at the peak, they were getting paid the same money as houses that were, a couple blocks away and didn't back to a busy street. So as the market weakens, those are the ones that first start weakening in price. The ones that have big faults like location or needing a ton of updates.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, I did see where a lot of people were buying these houses. Maybe they were even on a lot that was quite dangerous to cut the grass, or if it snowed, you're being stuck at and they were paying them the same amount of money as something that was on a nice, flat, manageable lot. And because they just wanted it, right? The exuberance was high.
How do you get those sellers to? It's tough because sometimes the price of the house becomes not just the price of the house. It's like their self-worth is related to the price of the house. So they don't want to bring it down to market value. But fortunately, prices haven't been falling here. They've been flat for a long time. But we're going through a recession, holy mackerel.
One of the things, and I want to get back to the housing market in Arizona for a minute, but one of the things that I want to say, and this really is I'm not trying to be political at all, but it looks like this administration is shaking things up. And whether you like that or not, I think we have to think about, we have to listen to what is being said. I mean, but also we have to be hopeful of a better tomorrow, right? And I'm all for trying to increase our production, making things in the U.S. I'm all for that. I would love to see opportunities for people, whether it's they want to set up a machine shop to make parts for a manufacturer, or whether they want to get into manufacturing a product. I would love to see, especially our youth, I would love to see the desire. I remember when I was in junior high, when I went, but we'll say middle school, when you're in the 7th grade, and I remember taking drafting classes. Wow. And the first edition that I did, I drew myself. The first house that I built, I drew myself. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but I knew how to do it. I put it on vellum. I took it to get copies. I had an engineer look at it, for the structural portion, and use those plans to obtain building permits. Most people don't know how to do that. I would love to see that happen in grade school, that we do that. I had metal shop that I took metal shop. I took wood shop. They had auto mechanics in school, in my high school. We don't see any of that anymore, right? So I would love to see, and why don't we see it anymore? Yes, we have trade schools, but why don't we see it anymore? Because we're not encouraging that. It's like, well, why would I want to do that? Why don't I'm not going to make anything. I'm not going to go into a bit. We import this stuff. They make these things in other countries. I would love to see where we have good opportunity for people right here to make things again at scale. So
that was a great high school. Great school you went to. That's really good.
You didn't have that? You didn't have that when you were in school?
I think in high school they just had auto shop, but I didn't take it. I wish I had. But I think that was it. I was talking to a friend's cousin or something. He teaches a class, I think this was in Washington State, about computer stuff. This is in a high school. And they end up having computer fights where you make a machine and so these guys, he said, a lot of the people that excel at that were people who didn't do good at all in academics, but they were like super great at this stuff, and they would get jobs immediately, or in fact, they had an agreement with people who take this class. We automatically can get a job at this one because they know those skills that are needed. I don't know why they dropped that. This is like I said, some kids excel at that stuff, but they don't excel at academics.
The colleges make more money.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
You don't have to go to college when you go take wood shop and decide to go into a trade. You don't make the colleges and universities don't make money. The government doesn't make money providing these government-backed loans. I mean, look, it's not a mystery, right? We can look back and see. We don't teach people how to be financially, literate when they're in school. And parents are so busy day to day just trying to keep food on the table and pay the bills. When you look at it, I can remember I probably wouldn't have been a contractor or gone into the trades if it wasn't for woodshop. I loved it so much.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I excelled at it, and I loved to make things. It was great, and I can remember in my senior year, Ralph Rigger, that was the teacher, Mr. Rigger, and I remember that he was retiring the year I was a senior in high school, and we actually panelized a very large shed, like you see in panelized housing today. We panelized it, put it on a trailer, took it to his house, and assembled this thing as part of class. It was fun, man. I mean, putting the trusses, hand cutting the trusses, just doing the whole. It was an amazing experience. People don't do that anymore, and they should. We should be bringing things back. I think you would find a whole another class of interest when the people that you're defining, the people that are sitting at home, maybe in basements playing games, that aren't, necessarily, into the academia, but they're creative and they're, they like to do things with their hands. When you're gaming, you're moving your hands. I think we would be amazed if we started teaching people how to manufacture and make things and encourage them in school. I think we'd be amazed of how that would probably reduce even depression in our country, probably would solve a lot of the mental health problems that we have, because there's nothing greater than making something and standing back and looking at it and saying, I made this. That's the best feeling in the world. Nobody can take that from you. You can go to work at a job. You can go to your employer. You can work your ass off, work for the bad guy in Paris, and leave the USDA, which is probably a big part of your decision to leave your job, your career, because you weren't feeling like you could win. So you got this deadbeat boss that's beating the crap out of you, demoralizing you, making you feel like you're worthless, but yet you built something and no one can take that from you. You're like, damn, I created that. That's a feeling, man. That's probably one of the best feelings that you can experience.
And I think a lot of students would love that stuff. But I guess it's more expensive. They have to fire different teachers. And you talked about financial skills. How many times when you're working with a buyer it's amazing what they don't understand. You got to explain everything as if they're 5 on the finances, et cetera. So I think that should be something in high school too, financial skills. I think there's a few states, maybe Oklahoma and maybe others, that require that to graduate. You have to take a course on finance or household financial skills, which I think would be a great idea as well.
Something else that talking about this, we used to learn in school how to cook. We had home economics, and I remember picking home economics, and all the guys were like, you're doing home economics, laughing at me. Guess what, man? I learned how to sew. I learned how to cook. I learned how to, there was a lot. People think cooking is easy. Cooking is a science in itself, right? You can cook, but is it good? That's a different story, right? But anyway, that's
one of my high school friends, her favorite teacher was a home ec teacher. She still does knitting or something like that, which she learned in high school, and it's her favorite hobby still. That's her favorite teacher.
I don't think anybody's doing home economics anymore. I don't know. Maybe there are schools out there. You guys can comment and let me know. People are probably like, what the hell are you guys talking about, man? I mean, I thought this was a housing market podcast and but it all ties together. So, and John, just to let you know, I think I've gotten a lot of very interesting comments from real estate agents because you talk about financial literacy. I am now, I don't know if you saw it, but I'm now doing courses teaching people how to buy houses.
Perfect.
In fact, I get a lot of, you may not even like hearing this because you're an agent. I know you don't rely on it so much, but I'm even teaching people if they choose to not use an agent, how do they do it? Because they should know. And it doesn't mean that, and I'm not advocating for them to go shopping without an agent by any means, but they should know how to interview agents. They should know what's important. They should know how to advocate for themselves. They should know how to negotiate themselves. So I have a kick-ass course, man, that is launching the same day this video is coming out. I have my first one this Saturday. It's sold out fast, and I have another one that's coming right behind it on Monday. This is going to lead to more and more of this where people are hungry. They're hungry to learn. People are hungry to learn. And I think part of what we do in society too much is we tell people that they can't do it without something else. We say, you know what, you're lost without me. You have to work for me, or you have to do this, or you have to use my service. You can't do it any other way. And that's a lie. And people, they need to be empowered and know that they can do whatever it is that they set out to do. The internet is a free way of information. Keep your encyclopedias, folks, because sometimes I feel like we're deleting information at the whim of, sites like Google, and determining what you see and what you don't see. So take grandmom's encyclopedias and don't sell them. You may need those one day, but anyway.
So Todd, tell me about the course. Is it live? Is it online? Is it
recorded?
So
thanks for asking. What we're doing, it's very condensed, and what we're doing is basically giving them the most important things that they should be doing from start to finish. And if they are, that's the best way to explain it. Things that your agent probably wouldn't tell you. And, maybe they would, but maybe they wouldn't, right? So, but the idea is to educate them. I'm not trying to make people real estate agents. This isn't, some 64-hour course. It's 3 hours. It's a 2-hour action-packed course with a hour live Q&A right now. This is what we're doing live, but this is going to transition more into, you can do it anytime you want, 24/7. We're working on building a website out as a courses that they can go in. They can pick and choose what course they want. And we're just giving them the transparency, and they can download checklists and questionnaires and things to keep them focused and keep them on track, because then they won't be so subjected to some other person's opinion, right? On, they can listen to them, but they would be more inclined to know what they're looking for, what they should do, or what they want. Try and take some of the exuberance out of the deal and make it more on purpose. So it's cool, man.
That's a great strategy. How many people, they know when they're looking for a realtor, for example, who to go for? Because a lot of realtors are what I call the everything is awesome agents. Everything is awesome, and they don't
cheerleaders.
It's like, you need to be looking. There's things can go wrong if you need to know these kinds of things. But it takes time. It's complex. So I think that's a totally awesome idea.
It's interesting because you say it's complex, but it really isn't. It really isn't complex. A lot of it is, there are a lot of things to be aware of, but if you think about the last 4 years or 5 years, it wasn't a very complex thing. It should have been more complex.
Oh.
Because what they did is they walked in the door and they were like, oh, I love it. I'll take it. How much can I pay for it? Like, what do I need to do to get it? Well, you need to outbid the next guy. You need to waive your inspection rights. You need to do. It wasn't complex at all. What was complex is when they woke up, from the sale, and they're like, they go to plug something in, they're like, damn, this outlet doesn't work, or this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, or man, we got to spend how much? We got to drain back up, and we got to do this, we got to do that. So, it needs to be a little more complex than that, right? And so it's a matter of just educating people. Yeah.
And it makes the purchase or so much smoother if you do that work at the beginning to understand the system.
You know what? I had somebody, and my grandfather, I'm going to talk about this for a second. We're going completely off topic here, but my grandfather used to say to me all the time, be quick to say no and slow to say yes, because yes is your word. It means something. I remember this man, product of the Depression, man, he didn't like contracts. He believed that contracts were for not in his best interest, that they were for somebody else. We shake hands. Mm-hmm. We meet, we look at each other, we shake hands, we agree. I'm not signing that. You can throw that in the garbage can. That was the kind of man that he was, right? Yes meant something. Working together, agreements meant something. And I used to remember he'd say, no, think about it, because if you say yes, it means you got to do it. You're telling your buddy you're going to go with him and do this, or you're telling somebody you're going to help him out. That doesn't mean that you can cancel this. You can't cancel that. You gave him your word. You gave him your commitment. That's what he instilled in me, right? When I was a kid. Be quick to say no. What buyers need to know is that they have the options to say no. And sometimes they should, right? Instead of being persuaded or pushed in a direction, or let their exuberance get going and things like that. And one of the problems when you're dealing in an environment where people are compensated by your purchase, a lot of times it makes it hard to put your client above you, right? Because you're thinking, man, I really need this commission. Now, I'm not saying everybody does that, but it's human nature that it is an environment that you need to be more savvy in making the biggest purchase that you'll ever make, and will have the biggest impact in your life if you make a bad decision or multiple bad decisions, right? So that's kind of where, my take on this is that, being in this industry for so long, man, I'm having a lot of fun with this channel and teaching people and helping people, and I think that and I think it's helping agents too. I think some of them get offended, but I think it's helping a lot of agents say, you know what, he's right. We need to be more like this, and we need to do more education. And it hasn't prevented me from selling. It's only made people more conscious of their decisions. So
Todd, let me ask you, is Maryland an escrow state or an attorney state for closings?
Yeah, well, it's escrow. Yeah.
Oh, it is escrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
because I would get clients from back east, and I'd have to tell them, okay, it's totally different here. Whereas this is an escrow state, and this is how it's going to go. It's not going to be like when you bought that house back in New York or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the Arizona housing market for a minute, because I know you mentioned that, and then we went off this huge, maybe we'll have to timestamp it if you guys, you know what people say, look, the BS ends here, just advance. You don't listen to, Todd's life lessons of what we should be doing and teaching and all this stuff. We just want to get to the heart of the matter, what the hell's going on.
That might be the most important part of this whole interview, is that segment.
People never disappoint me in the comment section, though. They always let me know what they feel, and I love it. Actually, it's fine. It's funny, along that spirit. We had a live show this past week, and I had mentioned something like, hey, it's live. Ask your questions, real estate related questions, or comment whatever it is that you feel like commenting. And if it's bad, then our moderators will delete it or whatever. I had so many of these people that like, my comment didn't show up. It was deleted. We're not deleting comments. what we do is, if we see where you're like badgering somebody or calling people names and stuff like that, yeah, we're given, and it's funny because I said we'd give you a timeout in a live stream. That's what we can do. We can time you out, but people were like, you deleted my Oh, that's crap. If you're a bad commenter and YouTube is filtering you out, then you got different issues with YouTube.
Oh, wow.
But people were like, I'm out of here. I'm unsubscribing. And then one person said they were going to unsubscribe because they felt like, are you going to censor me or whatever? No, that's not what I said. But one of my regular commenters said, bye. She's like, I think it was a woman. I don't know who it was, but they I thought it said like Michelle or something. And the commenter's like, well, see you later.
I saw your
lost.
I saw your last live. You have an unbelievable number of commenters. It is so engaging.
I got a lively crowd, man. But you know what? It's kind of cool because I was talking to our attorney this morning and just kind of like, in prep of, making sure we got our I's dotted, our T's crossed with what I can provide, people in our courses, because we're going to provide them with a lot of forms and things like that. And one of the things I'm going to do is provide them with our forms here in Maryland, a couple of them, so that they know what an agency form looks like. You're going to get ready and go out and shop. An agent's going to ask you to sign something.
Sure.
What should you require in that form that may not be there, though it may be state specific? But when I was talking with our attorney and just kind of going over that stuff and getting his blessings, one of the things that he said was, or one of the things that we talked about, he didn't say it, but is that we have a very big sampling of what people think. I mean, when you look at, you're an economist, when you look at statistics, it's a sampling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a data set. It's a sampling of a data set. It's a snapshot in time. It's maybe it includes different metro markets and things like that. Maybe it's a sampling of, multiple states, multiple opinions. But nevertheless, we have a huge sampling of what when people are like, well, why do you think that real estate agents may not exist someday in the future? It's like, well, because all of these people say that they would rather do it without one. So you can either ignore that, or you can look at it and say, that's a pretty strong data set. So if for every person that says something, how many more people think it? Right?
Yeah.
So you can't turn you talk about comments. That's why I try and read them. I try and analyze them. I try and see. I try not to get offended because, and I speak about this guy that came in here one time to podcast with me live, and he's like, yeah, you guys are going to go away one day. There's not going to be any agents. And I was like, screw you, dude. I mean, I bought this guy dinner. I'm like, you should have told me what you're talking about before we went to eat dinner. Because if you're going to come on my show and tell me that real estate agents would be extinct, I wouldn't have bought you dinner. I'd have sent you back to Hawaii without a meal, right? You can buy your own meal. But then you have to sit there and go, all right, well, this is a guy's opinion. He's in the, tech space. And I'm like, well, he's trying to make sure that, he's working on things, working on programs, or his subset is working on programs to get a piece of the action, right? So you can't turn your back to what is being said.
Yeah. Remember when they used to say, this is in the 1990s, that real estate agents would go the way of travel agents? But that didn't work out at all. The travel agents, they just said one little thing where the complexity, or simplicity, the makes the industry continue. And also when things go down, the individual agents take the financial shock. It's not so much the brokerage. The brokerage is like, they take a shock, but it's not like they're paying you a salary. It's like when business goes down, the agents take a lot of the shock in that. But
I don't know, brokers, we have expenses,
Oh
we
my
have
God, I'm sorry.
buildings, we have, we have lights, we have, insurance, we have, we have to look at the contracts, we have to, provide supervision. These agents don't know that or believe that or trust that while they're out there doing, some of them, whatever the hell they want, like the Wild West.
Yeah.
And then I have to pick up the pieces and say, well, wait a minute, what about this or what about that? Or you forgot this form or that form or whatever. And, so sometimes the agents, we talk about sometimes the agent doesn't know what they're doing either.
Yeah.
You see that? Come on, right?
And but I'm saying, like, it's better than Redfin, where they were paying a salary to all the agents. So when the market softens, they're hurt worse than the normal brokerage.
Redfin's getting bought out by
Yep.
Rocket. So things are working out in their favor, I think. I don't think they'll ever have to deal with it.
Depends what he sold it for. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever have to worry. These founders, partners, they don't have to worry about that anymore. Probably somebody else is going to be handling that, I would imagine. All right, let's talk about Arizona, man. What are you seeing? You say that things are flat.
Yeah, prices are flat, still flat. The big issue so far this year, sales are almost identical to last year and the year before when you look like January through today. But the number of homes hitting the market is up like 20%. And so as time goes on, that's like building up. So the total stock, the inventory of homes for sale, what I call the supply of homes for sale, is the highest since 2014. So that's so buyers have a great selection. But prices, it's not to the point where prices are coming down. They're still flat, but I think we're at the high end of normal. If this continues going by next fall, maybe we could be seeing prices tend to fall in the fall anyway, but we could be seeing unusual price falls next fall if it continues. And with this, I've been saying this for years now, but if we get a recession, I think the market is very fragile. So if we get in a recession, that could put a downward pressure on prices.
You're in the Phoenix area?
Yeah. Yep.
There was an article talking about the Phoenix area and, to your point, what you're saying too, with the inventory going up, and will there be a market crash in Phoenix in that, metroplex kind of, a lot of people. So when you see price reductions that are happening, let's just say, what would you say your median priced home would be in the Phoenix market?
It's in the high fours.
Okay. So, would it be fair to say 450?
Yeah.
Just for discussion purposes. What are you seeing? So when you're seeing price reductions, because John, a lot of and I've been doing a lot of tracking across the country. I've been doing it here because the Doge, we talked about Doge. A lot of people were falsely saying a lot of social media people were saying as soon as the layoffs were happening in the DC area that the housing market was crashing and that things were going like gangbusters and stuff. And it wasn't true at all. So I, every other week, do a detailed analysis on the areas where a lot of government employees live or where they would be affected the most, the housing market, because of the results of layoffs. But yet we haven't seen anything. We're looking at some areas that are suspect that maybe it's like, yeah, this could be an indication or an early indicator of a result of job losses, but we're not really seeing it yet because there's just not that much inventory yet. Year over year is increasing, or maybe week over week or month over month, but it's still spring. So you would expect that. But the interesting thing is that I found, John, is that over a lot of the U.S., a lot of the most popular markets, like 30% of the active listings have had at least one price reduction. So what are you seeing in the Phoenix area? Would you say that that's somewhat true?
I haven't been following the price reductions, but that's very likely true. But it just takes, like I say, sellers can be really slow to adapt to a change in the market. They anchor on a price. They saw, that house, 2 blocks over, my house is better than that house, and it sold for that, so I'm not going to go below this price.
So if you look at a 450, median or average sale price, and I know there's a big difference between the two, but let's just stick with it for the discussion. $450 as a going price on average. What would that house have sold for in 2019?
Oh, yikes. That, I can't remember offhand, but they've gone up about more than $100,000. It was like in 2 years, they went up 85,000. The median home price went up like $85,000 in 2021. Then went up a little bit more from that. So, I'm sorry, I should have this. Hey, I should have made some printouts before I got on. But
I mean, you're saying at least 30%, at least 30% increase.
Yeah,
probably
that sounds
30.
right. Yeah.
So if we have just say 30% increase, $120,000, just rough numbers on a $450,000 house. What kind of price reductions are you seeing? So if things appreciated in, just call it 5 years, 100,000, what are you seeing in price reductions? 5,000, 10,000, 50,000? I mean, what?
Yeah, 5 and 10. They're not huge price reductions. For example, the sale price versus the last list price is 5 to 10. Would be really
which doesn't really change that home's affordability at all.
No, it's just a little bit of you pay my closing costs or whatever.
Yeah, $5,000. It's not changing your monthly payment.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I keep thinking prices have been pretty much flat.
So what are they doing? Just deciding I'm just going to keep this house? I'm just going to let it, rot, fall down? Or are they saying, well, I guess I'm going to redo that kitchen and live here another 10 years?
Well, I can't figure out is like the sales I said are almost identical as last year, but a lot more homes are hitting the market. Who are those people that are hitting the market now? I don't quite know. Is it people that are Airbnbs or something? Are they deciding, okay, I'm not making as much money as I wanted, so I'm going to start to sell? Or it's people who just thought, oh, prices are going to go up. They're not going to go up anymore. Thought they were going to go up. They're not, so I might as well sell now. Or just the upward momentum is entirely gone. Maybe is that it? I don't exactly know why. We have some Canadians, but that's really small part of the market. There is a lot more Canadians selling, but it's a tiny part of the market. So I don't know exactly.
Canadians selling and moving back to Canada?
No, they have vacation homes here.
Okay.
So they're selling their vacation homes. It's really common, but that's a tiny part of the market.
So they go from some of the coldest climates on the globe to the hottest climates on the globe. They figure they need a little warm up. They just go to the desert.
They're only here in the winter. That's why we call them snowbirds.
Man, I'll tell you what. I thought Florida was bad. Arizona gets hot, man.
Do not visit in August. Do not do that.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Javier, per your lead. We did a podcast this week with Javier, posted on Thursday. And I said, well, how do you handle, he's in Arizona. I said, how do you handle the heat? He said, man, at certain times of the year, he goes, I just park close to entrances and where I got to go and I run. He's like, I run to the car. He's like, and look, and Lord help you, man, if you don't have one of those auto starts on your car to cool it down before you got to jump in. It's like you can't touch anything. You 3rd degree burns on your hands from grabbing the steering wheel. I mean, that's, sounds like fun, man.
Well, right now the weather's great. It's like the highs are in the 80s. It's like people are starting to wear shorts all the time. It's great right now. So I need to enjoy it and appreciate it because
does that last a week? Is that like a week out of the year? Is that like, oh my gosh?
No, I used to say we have 4 months of summer and 8 months of hell. So,
geez. I want to talk about a recent publication that you had tweeted on X. And by the way, all John's information is in the show notes below, as well as last time we podcasted together. He's admitted to me this morning he has like 65 YouTube channels or something like that. I don't know. We published the wrong one, so we're going to get the right one for you, John, on this one.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
We'll make sure we publish Cruise on over. Follow him on X. Follow him on YouTube. You tweeted this. I don't. It's not tweeted anymore. I guess it's posted now.
Everybody says tweet and retweet.
I know. Yeah. And it's funny when I see the little bird, I'm like, man, it's not a bird anymore. It's just X. This is an interesting study here that I read. I saw that you posted it, and it was put out by the National Bureau of Economic Research in March. And it's a working paper series, and we linked this as well, the PDF, that you guys can check it out if you want to dive deeper into it. But I thought it was very interesting because, everybody wants to talk about supply and demand in the housing market and, regulations, as we know, as somebody that has built houses myself and that has worked for a lot of contractors and builders, knowing that the regulations, the soft costs, add a lot to a project before you can even dig a hole, put the machine on the property to dig a hole. And so a lot of it is supply and demand, and a lot of people believe that it's elasticity, the ability for a builder to create more supply to offset prices, and demand, is controlled by the governing agencies in America, which to a large part, the zoning, will they let you build? How much is it going to cost you? What do you have to do to build houses or a new subdivision or increase supply? A lot of it's controlled, especially in Maryland, where we have a lot of, protected waterways, things like that. So it puts a lot of, it makes it harder to just increase supply. But this article was kind of interesting. It's titled, "Supply Constraints Do Not Explain House Price and Quantity Growth Across U.S. Cities." So I'm like, all right, what do you got to say about that? You want to explain elasticity a little bit, John?
It's like how sensitive something is to price. So if price goes up a little bit and supply goes up the same amount, that's considered elastic. But if price goes up and supply only goes up a little bit, that's considered inelastic. It's just how responsive supply or demand is to changes in prices. So if it, if price goes up a little bit and demand goes way down, then that's very elastic. It's very sensitive to prices. Demand is very sensitive to prices. They would consider that very elastic.
Yes. This NBR working paper reports the views of the authors, and again, it's that's important to take note of, resulting from their study that's directly challenging prior empirical research of supply and demand and home prices. That's really what caught my attention the most. But their paper, as I read it, concludes that the work from home surge during the 2020 pandemic is sort of like more responsible for explosive price growth across the U.S. cities, not specifically a housing shortage, regardless of the elasticity or inelastic ability to add housing stock to certain areas. So before, we'll kind of go over and we'll look at a couple of these things, John, and then you can, from an economist standpoint, maybe give us some of your points of view on this. But looking at their abstract, it says the standard view of housing markets holds that the flexibility of local housing supply, shaped by factors like geography and regulation, strongly affects the response of house prices, house quantities, and population to rising housing demand. However, from 2000 to 2020, we find that higher income growth predicts the same growth in house prices, housing quantity, and population, regardless of the city's estimated housing supply elasticity. We find the same patterns when we expand the sample to 1980 to 2020, use different elasticity measures, and when we instrument for local housing demand using a general demand and supply framework, we show that our findings imply that constrained housing supply is relatively unimportant in explaining differences in rising house prices among U.S. cities. The results challenge the prevailing view of local housing and labor markets and suggest that easing housing supply constraints may not yield the anticipated improvements in housing affordability. What is your take on this?
I think it's right. The general consensus right now is that, the problem with high prices and the housing crisis is all caused by supply, supply, supply. That's the problem. And we need to lower the regulations. So if you want to put um what an ADU in your backyard or whatever, if that would solve the problem, or if you were able to build skyscrapers and instead of having maximums, if they got rid of the regulation on that kind of stuff, that would increase the supply. The problem is too much regulation. So that's kind of the conventional wisdom among the real estate industrial complex, is they want less regulation. But it turns out that from this, he's saying no, it's demand. So when you got into the demand is more important than supply. So when you had that people could work from home, then they started moving to different towns. And so they're taking a good income. And so now there's more people moving to the suburbs or some other place or some smaller town and bringing their money with them. And so now there's more money chasing homes in this town. And so prices go up. So that's kind of like his idea. It's like it's the money chasing homes is what's determining prices. And when you get more money in an area because of influx of population or work from home or whatever reason, that's what's causing prices to go up. Not so much the fact that there was building codes or something with it. You need to have 2 stairwells or that kind of stuff is having a minor effect on it. I think that's right. I think a lot of what we saw here in Phoenix when prices skyrocketed in 2020 and 2021, the number of comparing it to 2019 to 2021, the number of homes bought by people who are going to live in the homes actually went down. But the number of homes bought by investors doubled. So it was demand from the investors, of course, because interest rates went down. So that made it a lot, you could leverage, the amount of leverage you can get for a home is higher than you can get anywhere else. And interest rates were down. So you weren't going to buy bonds because bond interest rates were down. So it just caused a huge influx of investor purchases. And so that the big demand shift would cause prices to skyrocket in Phoenix wasn't caused by people living in the homes. It was caused by investors. So it's the amount of money chasing homes determines the price. I'm sorry about your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think, though, that it still gets back to, so you're saying that if we doubled the supply, that the prices would still have stayed up and skyrocketed like they had.
There's one theory that says price would stay the same. You would just get a much better home because now there's so much supply that renters, for example, for the same rent, can get a much better place because there's double the amount of houses available. But people tend to overall spend 20%, spend 20 to 25% of their income will go to housing. And the amount of the supply of housing determines what they get for that money. Anyway, that's the theory.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of studies out there that are saying that people are now spending over 50% for their housing-related, costs.
Yeah, but they're looking at people.
I think they would love to spend 20%.
Yeah. I'm saying overall for even people who've paid off their homes and overall for the whole macro area, and not just people who just bought a house.
So if this theory is correct, that if increasing supply would not diminish price, then it wouldn't matter if we had a surge of inventory from people getting rid of their Airbnbs. It wouldn't matter if people were losing their homes actually to foreclosure, that inventory was brought on the market, or that the municipalities just opened up the floodgates of development and incentivized people to build more households. You think that home prices are that sticky that wouldn't adjust, that the increase of supply wouldn't adjust the prices?
No, I think it would adjust the prices, but I think their main point is demand was more important, and they can't find when people deregulate new home productions. It doesn't lower prices. It just anyway, like it's not lowering prices in the area.
Do you think we have a housing shortage?
I actually I think we could do definitely more housing, particularly lower, less expensive housing instead of the 3,000 square foot homes. We could do shortages there, but I think the main driver of the skyrocketing prices was demand. Just demand took off. Particularly, the number one reason would be falling interest rates. But then once prices skyrocketed because their interest rates were so low, what they say about houses prices are sticky on the downside. Sellers, if they have a choice, I used to be worth that much last year, I'm not going to sell it for less than that. So prices are really sticky on the downside. They'll just stay in the house. And there's been a huge remodeling. Holy mackerel, that's a huge industry because people didn't want to sell. In fact, I had one of my sons did that. He had his second child, and he would have definitely bought another house, but he has like less than a 3% mortgage rate. So he took out a home equity line of credit and expanded his house a little bit. Where if that had happened 5 years ago, he would have definitely sold that house and bought a bigger one.
Yeah. You say that sellers are sticky on the downside. You think buyers' demand is sticky on the downside?
I don't know what buyers. I'm saying prices are sticky on the downside anyway. Prices are sticky.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing. Sellers, if they don't reduce their prices, I mean, that's the driver of the stickiness, right?
Yeah.
I'm not selling for that. So it's really the sellers are in the driver's seat on the stickiness.
Yeah. Where we got prices to really crash last time was foreclosures and those distress sales, and we haven't seen that yet. That's what really caused them to tank last time.
It'd be interesting to see. I kind of have I do have a lot of theories floating around in my brain. Some of them I've spoke about. Some of them I haven't yet.
Good. I want to hear them.
But the interesting thing is you talk about the McMansions. Not everybody needs a 3,600 square foot house. I think that people are waking up to that, and I think that it'd be interesting to see this inventory because a lot of what I'm finding is, let's say that mom or dad are, now passed or whatever, and the kids are like, get this opportunity to have the house. They're like, well, I don't want the house. I just want the money to sell it. No, I don't want to live in that big house and pay all those expenses. Heat, $1,000 to heat the freaking house in the wintertime each month. And they're like, no, I'm not, I can't even afford the insurance payment on it. So,
one last thing, Todd, on the luxury homes, you talked about the stock market falling. That has a big impact on luxury homes. So that would tend to soften the luxury market more than the normal market.
I know a lot of agents that believe that every luxury home is overpriced.
Well, they are. They're right.
Yeah. I mean, you get people with the money and they walk in and it's a beautiful kitchen. They're like, I can't stand this kitchen. I'm rich and I'm going to rip it all out. So your $400,000 kitchen doesn't mean anything to me. I'll give you this much money for the house, take it or leave it. And then the people that are selling it, they're rich. And they've got what they want to do and get on with their life. And they're like, oh, hell, man, I'll take the, $400,000 less just to get this thing out, off of my plate or whatever.
Move on with my life. Yeah.
Yeah, you can move. I mean, the price movement in the luxury homes, you can really, but how do you even, say what a house is worth at that point? How do you even come away with an appraisal or something? But we see big swings in the luxury space. It just seems like the middle class is the one that's continually getting clobbered.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, John, I always love chatting with you. We have an interesting year coming up. What's your prediction for the rest of the year?
Oh, I'm terrible at predicting. My hope is that prices are flat or go down a little bit, and that's it. They don't tank.
That's your hope.
Hope. Yeah.
So you got the good guy on the left shoulder and the bad guy on the right shoulder. Mm-hmm. Which one's screaming the loudest?
Hopefully the tariffs don't cause us to go into a crazy recession and scare people and they start dumping their investment houses.
Whoa. Well, that would go against this abstract here. Of this paper in saying that all that inventory really won't change prices that much. It'd be interesting, man. This is one of the most interesting times. Well, we'll end with this. How long will it take for salaries to catch up to housing inflation to where we can get back to 20% of your paycheck going to housing related costs?
Oh, overall, yeah, I would think it would be more, well, years.
Years, decades.
No, oh God, not decades.
Come on, man.
So if prices stay flat, but incomes keep increasing, then eventually we get back into a good situation. But that could be 5 years or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would think, I know when I was thinking about this, and there's documentation of this in video, I said that we were either going to get into a situation where the prices went way down here and we lose all of that appreciation, or that it's going to come down to here and flatten out. Yeah. I mean, I do have, the nice thing about having a YouTube channel with, hundreds of videos, you can go back and find it. I have said that in my charts. And, I think that, and I was saying back then that we may see a decade of stagflation in home prices. And that was probably 3 years ago. So I think that I'm probably in line with you. If that is what happens, we probably have anywhere from 5 to 7 years before we see to where people will regain some affordability in the housing market.
Yeah, I just think the government is so much more involved in the market than it was 15 years ago that they won't let it crash. They'll come in with this program or that program, or
is that good or bad?
Oh, it's good for owners that their prices don't crash.
It may be good for everyone if they would have stopped, or at some point stopped manipulating the market. I mean, in doing research in the last, and you're an economist, you've done this. I remember researching the last 200 years of it used to be called depressions, panics, pandemics. They had different names for them, right? And it was the panic of this, or the depression of that, or the pandemic of this. And every couple of years, we had a massive adjustment where the markets kind of got out of line and they recorrected themselves. Now, since the government intervention, and their ideals now, how they can save the day and show up and be like, yeah, we're here to help, guys. We've extended these recessions like, 7-10 years in between. And then we manipulate the market a little bit and blow the bubble up a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the mortgage,
right? These asset bubbles.
The mortgage market is basically controlled by the government in the U.S. and the mortgage determine prices to a large degree.
You think we'll be like Japan and have 100-year mortgages one day?
God, I shall hope not. My goal is I want to get back to 20-year mortgages.
That's right. All right, my friend. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd. This is always a blast.
Well, John will do it again soon. And just a reminder, all of John's information is in the show notes below, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like the video, you can let us know by smashing that thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please consider doing so now. Hit that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. Keep those comments and questions coming. And one of the biggest compliments you can do for us all here at Sachs Realty is to share our channel and this video with your family and friends. This will help us to continue to build this amazing online community with viewers just like yourself. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.